The brutal reality of working 1,000 feet. Underwater, the hidden cost. He is 38 years old, and right now he is breathing a gas mixture that would kill him on the surface. Somewhere off the coast of Norway, sealed inside a steel chamber the size of a delivery van, a man is trying to sleep. His voice sounds like a cartoon character, because the helium in his lungs distorts every word he speaks. He has not seen sunlight in 19 days. He will not see it for 8 more. This is not a submarine. This is not a research vessel. This is his job. His name doesn't matter. What matters is the number on his contract. $1,400 a day. For most people watching this, that sounds like freedom. A way out. A 6-figure salary without a college degree. But nobody tells you the price is paid in blood pressure, in bone density, in the slow, silent erosion of a nervous system that was never built to live at these depths. This is saturation diving, and it might be the most misunderstood high-paying job on the planet. By the end of this video, you'll understand why some men walk away from 6 figures a year, and why others never manage to leave at all. The illusion of status. Every few months, a video goes viral. A diver in a bright yellow helmet welding a pipeline 1,000 feet below the surface, sparks glowing in total darkness. The internet loses its mind. That's insane money. I'd do that job in a heartbeat. Where do I sign up? And the fantasy makes sense. There's no boss standing over your shoulder. There's no cubicle. There's just you, the ocean, and a paycheck that dwarfs what a dentist makes in a year. Fathers show their sons these videos like they're showing them a war hero. Look what real work looks like. Look what it means to be a man who does something dangerous for his family. The offshore diving industry knows this fantasy sells. Recruitment videos are shot like action movies. Music swells, slow motion bubbles. A diver silhouetted against blue water like he's the last astronaut on Earth. Search for saturation diving online and you'll find the same handful of images recycled 1,000 times. The helmet, the torch, the dark water lit by a single beam of light. It looks like the coolest job in the world, packaged for a 15-second attention span. What they don't show you is the chamber. They don't show you the 28 days locked inside a pressurized tube with 2 or 3 other men, breathing air so thick with helium that every meal tastes like nothing. Every voice sounds like a chipmunk having a nervous breakdown. They don't show you that saturation divers aren't just employees. For the length of every job, they are, biologically speaking, prisoners of pressure. Their bodies are chemically incapable of returning to the surface without a controlled decompression that can take a week on its own. You don't clock out of saturation diving, you decompress out of it. And that single fact, the fact that leaving your job is itself a medical procedure, tells you everything you need to know about what this profession actually demands. The brutal math. Let's talk about the number that gets people through the door, up to $1,400 a day. On a good contract, that's close to $30,000 a month. Do that math fast enough and it sounds like the American dream wearing a wetsuit. But here's what nobody puts in the recruitment video. Becoming a commercial diver capable of saturation work costs money before it ever pays you a cent. Commercial diving school alone runs anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000, depending on the program. That's before certifications. Before specialized training in mixed gas diving, which can add another $10,000 to $15,000. That's a starting debt most 22-year-olds are taking on with no guarantee of a callback. And getting hired isn't like applying to a warehouse job. The saturation diving world is small. Maybe a few thousand qualified divers worldwide capable of working at extreme depths. You don't get hired. You get vouched for, which means your first 2, sometimes 3 years, are spent as a tender, the entry-level position that pays a fraction of what a certified sat diver earns while you wait and network and prove you won't panic when something goes wrong at 600 feet. Most divers don't see saturation level pay until their late 20s. Some never see it at all. They wash out during the wait, take a job on land, and quietly let the dream go. And even once you're in, The money isn't as steady as it looks. Saturation contracts are seasonal. The North Sea slows down in winter when the water is too violent to risk a bell run. The Gulf of Mexico has its own rhythm, tied directly to oil demand and hurricane season. A diver might work 90, maybe 120 days a year at that $1,400 rate and spend the rest of the year unemployed, waiting for the phone to ring. Annualize that properly, factor in the dry months, the insurance, the gear replacement, the therapy some of them quietly start paying for by year 5. And the take-home number looks a lot less like a jackpot and a lot more like a high-risk trade with unpredictable hours. There's also the equipment. Divers are often responsible for maintaining or replacing their own personal gear. Helmets, dry suits, communication units. None of it cheap, none of it optional. A single custom-fitted helmet can run several $1,000s on its own. It's a strange kind of job where you can earn 6 figures in a good year and still watch a meaningful chunk of it disappear into the tools required to keep doing the job at all. But the money was never the real cost. The real cost hadn't even started yet. The underworld and the psychological weight. Here's what almost nobody outside the industry understands about saturation diving. The ocean isn't actually the dangerous part. The chamber is. For the length of a job, sometimes 28 days straight. Divers live inside a pressurized habitat on the surface support vessel, breathing a mix of helium and oxygen called heliox. Their bodies are kept at the same pressure as the ocean floor they're working on, so they can be lowered down in a diving bell, work a shift, come back up into the bell, and return to the chamber, without ever depressurizing. Sounds efficient. It is efficient. It's also a kind of controlled imprisonment that very few jobs on Earth require. Picture living in a space roughly the size of a small camper van for a month, with 2 or 3 other men. You eat there, you sleep there, you use the bathroom there, in full view of your crewmates, because privacy is a luxury the chamber doesn't offer. Every meal is passed through a small airlock called a medical lock, because nothing enters or exits that chamber without being pressure matched first. Your voice changes. Helium speeds up your vocal cords, so every conversation sounds absurd. Except nothing about it feels funny after the second week. Your sense of taste and smell dulls because helium messes with your olfactory receptors. Divers have described eating the same meal for weeks and it tasting like wet cardboard every single time. And then there's the silence that isn't really silence. The hum of the life support systems never stops. Not for a second. Not while you sleep, not while you argue with a crewmate over something small because you've been trapped together for 18 days straight and small things start to feel enormous. But the worst part was still coming. Now, add the actual danger. A saturation diver's body is a fine-tuned, fragile equation. At those depths, a single decompression mistake, a valve failure, a miscalculated ascent rate doesn't give you a headache. It gives you decompression sickness that can cripple or kill in minutes. Nitrogen and helium bubbles form in the bloodstream and joints with catastrophic speed. Divers call it getting bent, but that casual nickname hides what it actually is: your blood betraying you from the inside. There's also the ever-present risk of a blowout, a sudden, violent decompression event where a diver can be forced through an opening not much wider than a porthole, by pressure differences strong enough to be instantly fatal. It's rare, but every diver knows it's happened. Every diver has heard the stories whispered on the support vessel about the job that went wrong. What most people only discover after signing the contract is that the mental toll outlasts the physical one. Divers report anxiety that doesn't fully go away, even on land. Sleep problems that follow them home. Marriages strained by a job that requires total disappearance for a month at a time, followed by re-entry into a family life that kept moving without them. A wife who managed the household alone for 28 days doesn't simply hand the reins back the moment her husband walks through the door. A father who missed a birthday, a school play, a first step doesn't get that moment returned to him, no matter how large the paycheck was. Some studies on offshore and hyperbaric workers point to elevated rates of cognitive fatigue and mood disorders tied to repeated pressure exposure and prolonged isolation. Though researchers admit the long-term neurological effects of a career in saturation diving are still not fully mapped, nobody has been doing this job long enough at scale for the full medical picture to be finished. In many ways, every diver currently working is also, unintentionally, a research subject in a study without a final report. Burnout in this profession doesn't look like quitting after a bad Monday. It looks like a 42-year-old diver who can no longer remember what it feels like to fall asleep without the hum of a life support system in the background. It looks like men who took the job to build a life for their families and slowly became strangers inside their own homes. Veteran divers talk about something they call surface shock, the disorienting return to a world that moves too fast, feels too loud, and expects you to reintegrate immediately after a month spent breathing someone else's oxygen supply through a hose. Some describe standing in a grocery store overwhelmed by the sheer number of choices on a shelf after a month where every choice was made for them by a life support technician. The verdict. So here's the question underneath all of it. Is $1,400 a day a fair price for renting out your own biology? Because that's really what's happening. You're not selling hours. You're not selling labor in the traditional sense. You're leasing your nervous system, your joints, your lungs, your sanity to an industry that needs someone willing to live at the bottom of the ocean so the rest of us can have oil pipelines repaired and underwater cables maintained without ever thinking about who made that possible. The men who do this job aren't reckless. Most of them are calculated, methodical, disciplined almost to the point of obsession, because that discipline is the only thing standing between them and a bloodstream full of nitrogen bubbles. They chose this. Many would choose it again. The money is real, and for some of them, it built the life they wanted for their kids, the house, the freedom their own fathers never had. There are divers who retired in their 40s with their homes paid off outright, something almost unheard of in most working-class families. But the version of that job sold in a 2-minute viral clip, the yellow helmet, the sparks, the slow-motion bubbles, that version doesn't exist. It never did. What exists is a man in a steel tube, breathing a gas that makes his voice sound like a joke, counting the days until decompression, wondering if the version of himself that comes home is going to be the same one who left. So the next time you see that video and you think, "I'd do that job in a heartbeat," ask yourself what you'd actually be trading and whether you'd still want the money if you knew exactly what it was going to cost you to earn it.